Hi, everybody. Welcome to your call. My name is LeeHonish. I am an independent consultant and marketing individual. You can learn more about the Launch Marketing System, digital marketing, buyer, seller, renter. We got all kinds of leads. Got all kinds of ways for you real estate people to get in front of homeowners or people who are buying or renting. Go to honish.com. I am joined, as always, by the leading expert in the topic of distressed properties. I am talking about home loan advocates, David Bartels. How are you today, David?
I'm good, thank you. Good morning, everybody.
As always, we are a week removed from the world famous Car Expo before the whole event moves up to San Francisco, David, for NAR in a month, I believe, October and November, one or the other.
The first weekend of November, November 11th, I think, is the weekend.
At the Javits Center. I actually like the Javits Center.
Yeah.
Getting there's a pain, but I do like the venue. And it's a great excuse to have some tremendous food. Okay. All of that said, David and I will give you the full report. If any of you guys have any questions, of course, for those of you on the call who have direct marketing questions on advocate marketing, monster marketing, digital marketing, what to say if you're talking to a guy in line, and if you don't believe me, check the archives. David and I actually role played. How do you talk to someone when you're at your daughter's flag event and you're buying a hot dog? As David put it, buying your soda and buying your hot dog. We actually role played that. We try to cover every angle for you. David is with Home Loan Advocates. Tell us about Home Loan Advocates, David.
Well, if you are working on a short sale, you might want to call Home Loan Advocates because we'll get the deal done for you, and we probably won't even charge you because we figured out how to get the bank to pay our fee 72% of the time.
There you go. Simple as that. Go to homeloanadvocates.com. As always, if you're listening or watching, I guarantee that in the comments there's a way to contact us. Really simple. For David, it's David at homeloanadvocates with an S.com. If you'd like to get a hold of me, I'm still old school. LeeHonish at Yahoo. Pretty soon Yahoo will be passe, like AOL. I feel Yahoo's the next AOL email address to get lost in the background. Like if you don't have a Gmail, you're not hip, and then it'll be something.
Right.
But I digress. All right, let's talk about the Car Expo, what we learned. Let's start with you with the California updates. You go to those reports, David. What did you learn?
Oh, I learned a lot. I spend almost every hour of the day in a classroom listening to a lot of different perspectives. And, and I think that you're asking about the economy or the economic numbers in particular.
Yeah, for California in general, which is usually the strongest economy in the nation for buying and selling, renting.
Yeah, so what you're going to see, I can pull those notes up. Excuse me. What you're going to see what you're going to see in California is that you're going to see a pullback. The big problem, it's still the big problem. It's the big problem every year I come back from CAR is that we're about 5 million houses short nationwide to meet demand, which is why we've been in such a robust sellers market for so long. And about half of those are in California. So we're about 2.5 million houses short, and that lends to part of the challenges. Overall, and I think this is true nationwide. I know a lot of people listen to us from California, but nationwide, the nation has an affordability problem where prices have outpaced wage growth. And people are just gotten to the point where they just can't afford that. And that has caused a slowdown in the market. You are seeing longer days on market. You are, that's a real phone. You are seeing you're seeing some price pullbacks, you're seeing some price stagnation. That seems to be common in almost every market. Now, there are some markets where, they say, well, the days on 33%. Well, that is they went from 10 days to 15 days. So, relatively speaking, some markets are still hotter than others. I think the bigger challenge is kind of figuring out where you are in each particular market. So it seems to be right around the median home price. So in my market, our median home price is just above $600,000. We know that it's a tale of two markets. The under $600,000 price range tends to be a little more robust. Those houses are selling faster. We're still seeing some price appreciation in those houses, though it's more normal. And then when you get above the median home price, you're seeing a slowdown in sales. Days on market is longer. The accumulation of inventory is higher, and you're seeing a lot of price stagnation, even price declines in those markets. Some markets are seeing 50% discounts of houses that are on the market. And so the way that applies to your local market or to other markets around the country is I'm willing to make a reasonably sized bet that you have two markets as well, and it's separated by the median home price. So under median is probably pretty robust, over median is probably softer. And you really have to approach buyers and sellers a little differently, whether or not you're below or you're over. So that's really the big takeaway. They seem to think that interest rates are going to stay down over the next year. They think that, and this is nationwide, they think that we're going to see normal growth, that the market has pulled back, and so they're anticipating 2, 3, 4% growth in appreciation. They're adjusting the definition of a normal market to be closer to a 4-month supply. This is absorption rate, 4-month supply versus 6-month supply, which is what it's normally been. And you're just basically seeing a lot more balance in the marketplace, more traditional transactions, and it's never been more important if you're a real estate agent to properly price your listings, and you've got to figure out how to negotiate without 7 offers, with only 1 or 2 offers now. So those are really the economic highlights, and we can certainly take a deeper dive into some of this if people have questions about it.
Victoria Conway writes, we see the same thing in the Tri-City. I didn't know we were called the Tri-City, by the way. Vista, Oceanside, and Carlsbad. First time I've heard it referred to in my hometown as the Tri-City, but I would agree with her. It's always a tale of the city next to us, or I get the impression based on the information, and it's been my feeling about the market, it isn't just enough to be the agent in the luxury market targeting these homes. You really sort of have to up your game and be prepared to work a little bit of everything if you want to stay active based on the information you've provided.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the market is, the market is a little complicated. So, people, it's the days of just putting a sign out and selling houses is, are over. I mean, I know we have some investors on this call, and I think the outlook is really kind of good for investors. iBuyers are certainly, here to stay, and really all they are investors. They just have a little different, approach, to going about it. So I wouldn't, certainly not. It's certainly not time to panic. We're going to see slower growth, but the growth is going to be normal. And in California, there's not a single economist I listened to, and it was 5 or 6 that I listened to. I mean, the top economists from Zillow and Redfin, and 2 from Carr, and 1 from Real Trends, and there was a maybe another one out there. Nobody seems to think that we're going to have any kind of housing crash um, because of supply. I mean, the low end of the market is still supply constrained, and the high end, you've got some aspirational pricing, but those guys don't really have to sell sell their house. The market is good, but and it's going to just continue to be steady. So it's just like I said, the low end prices are up, the high end prices are down. Most of the big struggles in the marketplace that you're seeing are in the high end luxury homes, and those sellers don't seem to be too concerned. They're just converting. One thing is that they're certain of is that California is already 40% non-owner occupied state. It's a big rental state, and some markets are already 50% or more. And they think all of California will be a non-owner occupied state by 25. So by 2025. And there's just not enough new construction, and what new construction there are in that over median home price that there's just not enough buyers there. And you're not seeing buyers responding to these lower rate drops, which is why they're probably not going to go
up. Yeah, I would agree with you. This was specifically for California, and because I'm involved in, as many of you are aware, I'm involved in generating rental buyer leads. I just know that the demand on the market is so strong for people to get housing of some kind, be it a rental, be it a buyer, be it whatever it is. California specifically, I'm always kind of shocked at the numbers that it generated. Before we started the call, I know that I run them in select areas, and Victoria had just written in, and we're talking over the course of maybe a week, 50 people who are looking to rent. In their minds, I think it's renting, but it's also buying. But it's the direction I see. I've been saying this for a while. And you've talked about it, right? Going into property management, being aware of renters, I understand from a real estate agent's perspective why they wouldn't want to be involved in the rental market. There's not a lot of incentive for the amount of work that has to go in to putting a renter in as a realtor. Like the referral fees aren't as strong as working with buyers or sellers. I completely get it.
Well, the only reason to do it, really, in my mind, is you're developing these trusted relationships with people who have a high likelihood of acquiring more properties and using you as their agent, and eventually selling their properties and consolidating into multifamily or commercial and those kind of things. So, 1031, these buyers and sellers have a tendency to be a little more active because they see themselves in the real estate business, so they're going to do more they're going to do more transactions than a typical buyer or seller, which is it's down to 10 years where it's traditionally been 7 years. It went up to 12 and it's back to 10. And so the investor buyers seem to be playing a big role in churn. But here's a interesting note is that in 2018, of all the properties that were purchased by investors, 26% of them were flipped and 74% were holds for rentals. And in 2019, 18% were flipped and 8% were rental. And so because the reason for that is that it's become a lot more difficult to acquire properties at the steep discount to market for you to flip. And so a lot of investors have now decided to take a much longer term approach, which is the same as the big venture venture funds that are out there, and they are buying, holding, and renting. And some of them have a 2-year plan because they want to avoid capital gains, and they want to, or they're going to do a 1031. They're going to wait to get a little appreciation. A lot of these guys are buying where the first year they make no money. But then then they raise the rent $50 a month the second year, and then another $50, and so on and so forth. And they're just deciding that they just want to acquire it. They think it's a good time, for the market, especially in the non-owner occupied space, because there's more and more competition for those, which is pushing prices higher and higher and higher, and the rents are outpacing appreciation. And if you're in the rental market, growing rents, they're making the decision based on cap rate. They're not as concerned about what the rental comps are. They're just looking for the rate of return on cash. And we're seeing a lot more leverage purchases for rental. The rental buyers aren't necessarily cash buyers that are renting. They're they're getting FHA loans for 1 to 4 properties. I'm in escrow with a duplex right now. The buyer's an FHA buyer, and they're putting 15% down, and they're paying the top end of market for the property, but it cash flows for them.
Right.
And in this case, they're going to live in one side and they're going to rent the other side. Is how they're going to do it. So
it's very logical. In fact, when I started the digital marketing program, I assumed that when I gave it to a couple of people who got involved with it, that I would see the investors appear. And it wasn't shocking to me. It just happened last week, since the program's only about a month and a half or 2 months old now. The investors they'll take the renters. This is the first time I've seen it, but I'm sure there's more out there. They go out and purchase the property for the renter, making the agent the buyer's agent, which is ultimately what everybody wants, the higher commission rate. Then they turn around and they put the person who picked out the property, the renter, back into the property. They do it for a non-existent application fee of like $99, but they're looking for average credit, a month and a half up front. And they run it basically, and the smart move, they run it basically like seller financing through the back end, but the way they handle it, it looks more like a mobile home kind of purchase kind of thing. So if they don't make their payments, they're easy to get out of the property. And I would assume, based on the first one that I found, that there are many people like this. So I'm just putting it out there to agents or investors like you, what the information you're providing to me as somebody who generates leads, right? If you're not working buyers, sellers, you really need to start including looking at renters. You need to look at diversifying all these different angles and creating all these different lists of people, because ultimately that, certainly for California, that's the future.
Well, part of this phenomena where you're creating an affordability crisis is that the investor buyers that we're seeing that are buying these rental properties are competing with the first-time buyers. Right. So you're seeing them; they're competing for the same properties. The first-time home buyers are buying just over $500,000, and the investor buyers are buying just under $500,000. And the investor buyers are more aggressive than the first-time home buyers, and they're making a much stronger presentation to a seller. So the first-time home buyer might be coming in with 5% down, and the investor is coming down with 20, 30, 40% down, and are showing a stronger balance sheet, which makes them appeal more to the seller. So it's part of the problem that we have home buyers into the market, which is why those of you that are working with first-time home buyers, you really want to get, they really have to be aggressive, and they've got to step up, and they've got to get into these properties, even if they feel like they're overpaying a little bit, because it's the ring is only going to be harder and harder to reach. The ring of home ownership. They got to get in, because these entry-level prices are going to continue to go up, and they are likely to go up faster than their ability to save and their and increases in their household incomes.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. At this point, let me insert a gratuitous for those that are late and for those that are listening. Go to Home Loan Advocates. Learn more about distressed properties, getting your short sale done from the leading facility for processing underwater distressed properties. David Bartels is easily reached. Just send him an email, David at Home Loan Advocates, or go to homeloanadvocates.com. Also, if you are interested in distressed property leads or buyers and renters, go to LeeHonish.com. I have a digital marketing program that will be ending soon. Yes, I said it out loud. I'm ending the actual current structure because now that it's running efficiently, I've figured out that we can just send it state by state, David. A little birdie told me, not allowed to explain all the parameters of it, but if I generate the leads, send them into a lender pre-qualifies them out, wouldn't that be a referral for one source, basically, and a much higher rate of return than me just generating leads for them? So, yeah, it didn't take that individual long to explain that math to me quickly. So that program will be ending shortly. So if you are interested in getting a year's supply of buyers and renters, click on the digital marketing, click on the one-on-one link. And I will make you super busy. You can ask a couple of people on this call. In fact, Sharon wrote, just joined, was out showing some more tenants. Yeah, you were. I'm sure you were. It's the way it works. Okay, back to it. Ezio has a referral for a couple of agents. Yes, Ezio, send me an email at LeeHonish@yahoo.com. Only because I'm recording at this moment. We do refer within the program. Simple as that. Took care of that, and okay, I'll cover that in a little bit. All right, with all of that said, David, what else did you see while you were at the Car Expo? Because I walked the expo floor, and as always, things that have nothing to do with real estate were the most popular booths, as always. Not surprising there. I'm still shocked at the fact that there were not one, not two, but three different people trying to push mail services still from a marketing perspective. And not one, but two different vendors who had personalized magnets, pens, and things of that nature. On the digital marketing front, for those of you who want to know, most everybody who had predictive data leads are now officially gone because, as David said previously, people are staying in their houses longer. So predictive data is kind of out the window right now. So whatever list you think you have of in this area, these people are planning on moving, data that you purchased is basically inaccurate. People are staying in their houses longer. I think the most interesting thing I saw in general were a couple of CRMs that are now incorporating voice broadcast. They're using cost per clicks as the lead source, which I'm against. I don't believe in buying Facebook ads for cost per click. I just don't think it's that effective. Let's see, anything else that I saw that was mind-blowing? I did like the robot that writes hand-printed notes for you. That was kind of interesting. But beyond that, the only other thing that really stood out to me, which was really a first, there is a growing trend, certainly at the Car Expo, and I guarantee next year it'll be double the number. There were a number of booths regarding leasing, qualifying renters, like getting agents to slowly move into that direction. They weren't being touched by any of the agents, but certainly it was the first time where I saw a presence of that community on the Car Expo floor. Was there anything you saw specifically at the expo or at any of the sections that jumped out at you?
Yes, in particular, I was interested that there was a short sale negotiation company that was there. So I just stopped by to chat with them and said, you know, I hear short sales are dead. What are you doing here? and they didn't know that I knew a thing or three about short sales. And they said, no, well, based on all the data, it looks like California is going to be, it's going to be really busy, and we, wanted to come out here and make sure the people, had somebody that they can help do the short sales. Now, I didn't see any agents in their booth at any of the time, the couple of times I walked by there. Even though they came in from somewhere around out of state to, to market. I thought that, they really were trying hard to convince me that there were going to be a lot of short sales using data, and there's still plenty of. I don't disagree with them. Obviously short sales continue to be an important part of us, but I just thought it was interesting that another company who pays close attention. I don't even remember the name of the company, but that pays close attention to these things has all of a sudden decided California is where they ought to be if they want to be in the short sale business. Even though statistically speaking, from a number of transactions, there's it's less than 2% of the marketplace. Now, short sales still make up about 30% of my pipeline. And because we focus on them, and there's there's not much competition, and we've certainly got a better approach than everybody else has for doing those. But I was interested to hear why they were here and what led them here, and they certainly believe that we're going to see a big uptick in foreclosures start. So that was maybe the most interesting thing. And aside from talking to a couple of technology providers, which CRMs are getting so complex, and they're merging so many different technologies, and that can kind of make and they're getting more and more expensive because they do so many different things. And I just find it interesting to hear what some of the new technology really look. I'm gonna explore some of it more, but some of this stuff is $3,000 a month.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And they espouse to being able to convert leads automatically. I'm not sure that'll ever be true using AI, but I got to tell you, some of it is really pretty cool, where a robot is having a reasonably good conversation with a client based on the words, and then a person can take over anytime. So there's some cool stuff that's coming. One thing that I think that agents might be interested in, that I heard on the broker summit day that I was at, which was the first day, is that commissions are coming way down. They still think that there's going to be a high need for agents, and the personal relationship. It's not like buying a latte. You really need somebody. They want hand holding. People said that millennials would never use an agent, but millennials want agents as much or more than everybody else. They just don't want them in the first phase of gathering information, seeing what's available. They like the freedom and control of being able to search and gather information on themselves. But when it comes time to do the transaction, they want a lot of hand holding, as much or more than everybody else, and they want an expert in their corner to assist them. And they're going to be and they're going to research who you are and what your track record is in most cases before hiring you, unless they already have a trusted, intimate relationship with you, which is an important part of the kind of relationship building that everybody, investors, realtors, have to do in order to be successful. So don't be surprised if at the NAR conference they make some sort of announcement about separating the commissions between buyers and sellers and being a lot more transparent, like mortgage brokers have to be. This is in response to the lawsuits that are taking place in the Midwest, where the same lawyers from Big Tobacco have sued real estate agents for collusion on buyer agent commissions and forcing sellers to pay for buyer agents. So don't be surprised if we have to start to break that out, or there's an announcement that we're going to have by a certain date are going to have to change our forms so that we clearly spell out what portion of the purchase price is being used to pay for buyer agent commission, and you start seeing a trend toward buyer agents to pay their own agent commissions separately from the seller doing that. So it's going to be an interesting time over the next year or two about commission compression. We've already seen big commission compressions on the seller side, and it looks like next year is going to be the buy side compression, because the buyers end up having to pay, or we have to be a lot more clear about what portion of a seller's closing cost is going to buyer's agents. You're going to see a separate negotiation for buyer agent commission, apart from the seller commission that is already going on. So just some things to think about how the landscape is changing.
From the Nation on the call, Douglas Winter, NWMLS in Washington yesterday regarding buyer commission. Here in Washington, sellers. And then from Eric Borgia, here in Washington State, sellers are not required to pay SOC. This started October 1st.
Yeah.
There you go.
I hadn't heard that, but don't be surprised, that the National Association of Realtors comes up with some sort of program that they're going to try to get the state associations to adopt everywhere. And, we'll see. I mean, you don't have to, right now the MLS requires you to offer a cooperating agent commission, but it could be $1. I mean, you can put, $1. And then if you say, well, if you only put $1, then nobody would show the house. And then all of a sudden, well, that's the collusion that they're talking about.
Right.
When you say, yeah, but I understand it's built into the house, but you gotta, if you don't offer 2.5%, you're going to get a reduction in traffic and offers, and some agents will steer them around your property. And if they like two properties, they're going to recommend the other property over yours that's offering a commission. That's all putting the agent's interest ahead of the fiduciary responsibility to the buyer. And you want to be very, very careful with that. There's nothing that says, if I saw a dollar price, I don't represent buyers, but if I were to, but my agents do, and if I were to go out and see one that had a dollar commission on it, I would still show the property. But when we made the offer, I would submit a single party compensation agreement with it and negotiate that as part of the deal, and let the seller know, or let the buyer know, that this is what the commission is going to be. If they don't pay for it, we have to negotiate it into the price. So, I'm just going to say this house is going to be more expensive than the other house.
Before we spend time with those that are on the call and answer their questions, David, can you tell us a little bit about Home Loan Advocates?
Well, Home Loan Advocates is really a distressed property consulting company. So if you work with homeowners who are facing foreclosure, we would be a great resource. What we've done is we've basically built a national network of real estate experts who are interested in helping their community, the homeowners in their community, avoid foreclosure. And so we do that by coaching them on how to get loan modifications, helping them postpone their foreclosure, to buy them the time that they need in order to save their house. And when that's not possible, then we work with them to sell their house with them or for them, or buy it from them, depending on which hat you're wearing, and help them get transitioned into a new house. It's a very successful program where we get buyers to reach out to us and contact us, and then we go out as part of our community service, part of our public outreach, work with them to understand their alternatives to foreclosure. A very high percentage of them aren't able to keep their house from foreclosure, and nor should they, because it doesn't make good financial sense for them to be able to do that. But we're there to hold their hand and guide them through the process and make sure they understand what the next steps are based on where they are in the process. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can call me at 805-413-8000, 805-413-8000. You can email me at david@homeloanadvocates.com. I do have a webinar that I can send you that'll give you an overview of how that program works. We have one for investors and we have one for real estate agents as it applies to both.
And if you are interested in the reason we're all here originally, Monster Marketing, the original distressed property marketing system, it is still available. It is still out there. It's not really out in the public eye for real estate agents, for those of you listening, but it still exists. Go to LeeHonish.com, click on the Monster Marketing link at the top, and you can learn all about the program. Also, the program that I am most passionate about right now, which is generating renters and buyers and endless leads, because as we have discussed many times on many of these podcast, broadcast, coaching calls, more discussions about real estate leads to more real estate transactions. Click on the digital marketing link, scroll down, click on the free one-on-one, and I will spend quality time with you, or sign up. We have a monthly payment program and we have a 1-year paid upfront program. I will even throw in the testimonial from Mark Doris, who writes in, Lee is the real deal. If you want clients and want to work, trust his guidance. Thank you, Mark. That was very kind of you. Just go to LeeHonish.com, learn more about all these programs. We've got pretty much everything covered.